And welcome to Silence This. I'm J. Austin Graham, the host of Silence This, and
we are joined here today with Edwin Rutsch.
Yeah, I forgot. But before we start, I just wanted to bring up this topic because I see a lot of people talking about it, and I think it's kind of a big deal. So people have been talking about Trump wants to add immigration status to the census. So basically, the census, is really important for understanding who's here in this country. Mm-hmm. And if you add the immigration status, then it would be more informed. And I understand why people want that information. However,
the concern is that now you just gave ICE your address.
Yeah, the concern is, and the best way I can explain this is to Republicans is to compare it to gun control, right? Because if you tell a Republican, why don't you want a list of registered guns? They go, well, because if there's a big list, then the government knows where to go to get them. Right, same thing with immigrants. If you sign up for the census, then there's a big list of where the
tells
immigrants
you where to
are.
go to get the immigrants.
And so what that's going to create is the census is going to go up to a door, knock on the door, and they're going to say like, no, nobody's home. And they're going to say like, well, what about all those people in there? Oh, this is a party. We're house sitting, and these people are just hanging out here.
Yeah, they don't live here.
Yeah, none of us live here. None of us.
Yeah.
I've heard the census, they pay $30 an hour if you want to work on being a census taker.
Wow, $30 an hour?
Yeah, I was just talking to a friend of mine about
Not
that.
bad. It's probably a bad job.
It's probably an annoying job, but a lot of it's probably, I don't know, that probably is annoying. I don't think I would enjoy that, but $30 an hour just to talk to people? That actually seems like a pretty decent gig. I mean, it's not even once a year, is it? Okay, but point being is you want people to sorry. Point being is
I got you off your thread.
Yeah. What happened is my point is
that was the other thing that I was getting at is that we have not introduced Edwin yet.
Well, that's where I was trying to get
That's where I was trying to get you to.
But I was going to say that the best way, and you can just reverse that argument. If you have somebody who's not listening to you and you want to talk about the, census, you can start it by talking about gun control. But if you want to talk to the the Democrats about it, you start it by talking about census and then compare gun control to that.
You could go on the other way.
Yeah.
And that makes the point.
And the point is it's hard to get people to listen, which is why we have Edwin Rutsch on the show today.
Edwin Rutsch is a master listener, the host of the Empathy Tent. Those of you who are not familiar with the Empathy Tent, do you want to tell us, Edwin? Why don't you tell us
please.
what it is?
Yeah, the
what
Empathy Tent is it's a tent that we take to different political rallies, and it started at Occupy Wall Street in Berkeley.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's been around for a while, 2011. And we saw there that it was the 99 against the 1%, if you remember. Mm-hmm. That was a big theme. And I thought, well, we need a culture of the 100%. So we went with the 100% empathy tent.
Okay.
So we were trying to advocate for, listening to everyone, including everyone. And since that time, we've been setting up the empathy tent, different political rallies and
especially in Berkeley,
yeah.
as the Antifa stuff has been rolling out over there.
Yeah, it sounds like you started the same time as Antifa in America. Yeah. Basically, y'all came about at the same time. And this is interesting, because this is like the peace movement that came about the same time that the nuclear bomb came. It's like, you're the answer. Mm-hmm. Like, to me, you are the hippies. You are, I'm sure you can identify with that.
Yeah.
But you're the hippie in the room saying, come on, guys, let's get along. Let's talk. And it's really, what you do is you bring listening in. To me, that's the really thing
active
that I've
listening.
learned from, active listening, from the Empathy Circle, is you listen and then repeat back what the person said
to their satisfaction.
To their satisfaction, right? That way, you're not straw manning their argument. You're not misrepresenting what they said. And then once they say, "Okay, I feel heard," then you're free to come back with
Then you can have a counterpoint.
Yeah.
You guys have been well trained.
You're good at this.
You're good. Yeah, you've been taking part in online empathy circles, so you've gotten some experience with it, and you really got it down.
My first introduction to active listening was I had a lot of trouble with my family and in my family when I was a teenager. But I got sent away that I was the problem. I was the great big problem in the family, and so I was sent away to these wilderness survivors. I've told you this before.
I heard this story.
And so that was the big thing that I learned at the wilderness. The one big thing that I learned was, oh shit, I've never listened to anyone ever before in my life. Ever. I've just taken them in and reassigned what they said.
Yeah.
And I've never genuinely tried to interrogate what they intended, and I was just not listening to people. And from then on, I have been able to listen to people.
So it made a big impression on you then. Really.
Well, it's like a skill.
Yeah.
It's like it's an amazing skill. It's an amazing skill that disarms the other person, and that they go, oh, this person's paying attention to me. I don't have to be hostile anymore. I'm safe.
Yeah.
And so when they feel heard, all the spikes come back in, and like we can actually move. We can go somewhere.
Yeah, it's all about listening and hearing each other.
Well, that makes me wonder. So where did you get the start? Where did you start? When did you discover that listening and empathy were such an important thing?
Yeah.
How did you tactically?
How did I get started in this?
Yeah.
Well, I would say it was. Kind of the longer story. I don't know if you want to hear the longer story, but
sure.
I got all the time.
I grew up here in Sacramento.
Okay.
And it was it was kind of in the '60s. It was kind of a hippie era. 60s era. And I think one strain of the '60s was sort of that seeker quester. Going traveling. And another was like a back to the land. Well, I took the seeker traveler route. So I after high school, I took off traveling, spent the next 10 years traveling around the world, just kind of seeking seeking the meaning of life.
Sort of a hero's journey.
A hero's
a
journey.
deliberate hero's journey, going out into the world and taking it on and just seeing what happens.
That's it. Yeah. So I did that, and then came back, and so I got to make some money.
It was good though, right?
It was great. It was the best thing. I'm so glad I did it. I mean, awesome. It was just like, it kind of formed me. And I grew up actually fundamentalist Christian. Yeah. So the traveling, I was living with Muslims, with Hindus, with, you name it, just all over the world, and living and working with them. And just kind of saw, people are kind of
humanity.
People everywhere.
Yeah.
It's that common humanity. I'm sitting out there in Australia in the outback, camping out with some, Aboriginals. We're just sitting under the fire, under the stars, talking about life
and eating food and sharing a drink, and there's not too much to it. That's pretty much it. It doesn't seem very complicated.
Yeah,
we can make it so complicated, can't we?
Yeah.
Out in the desert with Aboriginals in Australia?
Yeah, center of Australia. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I think you did it right, Edwin. Yeah. I think you did it right.
So, it was India, in China, Russia, Europe, the hippie trail from India.
The hash trail, I know.
Exactly, you know that. You've been there?
No, but I've read about it.
Afghanistan, where you were too.
My therapist of all the people in my life, my therapist used to drop acid with Tim Leary.
Wow.
And that was part of his journey, was that he went.
Sounds like a good therapist.
He went through Pakistan. That was the other thing, is he was telling me about exactly. He was telling me about doing acid on top of the Buddha heads in Pakistan or India or wherever that is, or Afghanistan, wherever it is. It was somewhere in the same region, and I was over there in the military capacity. But at the same time, it was no, I can respect that.
Sounds like a good thing to do
legit.
to me.
That's legit. He probably learned something sitting up there on top of that head for a couple hours tripping on acid. He probably, had some connection to the universe. It's probably pretty all right.
One way.
Well,
definitely.
After leaving here the other night, I was on a really good combination of...
Juan Medina's trying to call into the show.
Oh, okay.
We'll take him later.
I was on a good buzz, smoking hash and drinking beer, and I got home and realized that I discovered that what I think is the meaning of our existence, and it was just so disappointing. And that is that we're just a simulation running so that solid state intelligence can figure out how it got invented in the first place.
You could. I've heard of these arguments. I think.
But that's basically just a take on what Alex Jones kind of said. But it's a thing that I also figured out sitting in a tree on drugs once.
It's a cop out.
It's not so much a cop out. I think it's a thing that could very well be true.
Mm-hmm. Or a simulation.
Yeah, and it's basically what Alex Jones said was God knows everything except for where God came from, and I think that was actually a very brilliant concept. Mm-hmm. And so to me, I would say that if you replace that God with a computer, and say that computer's trying to figure out how it came to be, then we are an organic simulation to find out how artificial intelligence can come to be.
Yeah, where did the simulator come from?
Yeah.
Kind of behind that.
The way that I see it is like started off at one cell or like replicating proteins that then formed a cell, and then the one cell said, hey, fuck this, we're going to be multiple cells, and then the multiple cells said, fuck that, we can be organs and then be a body.
Let's all
and be
get
a bigger
together.
thing.
First of all, cooperation is a big thing.
And then we got these communities and all these other things, and so we're just forming the next thing of a cell. I don't know what it is, and neither would the cell doesn't know what the organ is. And so you don't know, and you're not going to know.
Well, we brought this up because I was saying that communism works best if you have a class of slave robots. Communism can work as long as you have an underclass of robots who do all the real work.
Might work out. The problem with it is everybody gets lazy. Yeah. I wanted to go back to the empathy point,
right?
And I wanted to go back to the region, the area, and the travel.
Okay.
And because I wanted to talk about Africa and Afghanistan were my two big places.
Okay.
Well, what did you experience in Afghanistan?
For my growth, yeah.
Well, I passed through, so I wasn't there for extended time. But I think it was more the just meeting people, talking to people, and again seeing that common humanity. Like you're talking about where did it all come from. Uh-huh. I thought I knew. It's like God. Fundamentalism, 6,000 years old. The world is 6,000 years old, that kind of thing.
When you said fundamentalist, you meant it.
Yeah, very much so. In the family, there's a picture of the world, right? There was 6,000 years, epochs, and so forth. So, but just connecting with people, it's like, I just being in India, I would believe this if, I was born here.
Right.
I would believe this if I was in Afghanistan. I would believe this.
That was where I was going to go. Was Islam? What was your experience with Islam?
I didn't,
and especially in that region, because I experienced it in Africa and Afghanistan. They were both, Islamic nations in the areas that we were staying in and living in, and so I got to interact with that religion and see how the religion essentially forms the government, the family structures, the legal structure. It is essentially everything.
Yeah.
Well, Christianity was like that for Europe too.
And that was the thing, is that then we made America and we said, hey, we're going to separate those two things, and we're going to let anybody worship whatever they want. You don't have to be that to be here. And so it's an attempt to create a universal system.
It's so different in different areas of the Muslim world, because I had a Muslim girlfriend in Indonesia. Almost got married.
Wow.
We actually went to her folks and want to get married, and then everything kind of fell apart. But
they didn't like that, I bet.
They did not like that. They did not. Yeah, because the main thing was because if a Muslim woman marries a non-Muslim, and she loses her religion. So as I understand it,
so it's a very male-based religion, kind of different from Judaism. Judaism's based all on the mother, like your friend was saying. Like if your mother's Jewish, you're Jewish.
Yeah,
that's just how
Jewish is a matriarchal religion.
And that's a thing that we don't really hear about very much, is how much of a matriarchal religion Judaism
especially with
is.
the Jewish mother stereotype and stuff. You're like, okay, I see it. Makes sense.
It is.
But the thing with the Islam is people are just people. If you really get down to it, I mean, just like she was just. You think there's all these strict rules. It's not. It's pretty, especially in Indonesia. You got all these layers of cultures. You got animist, Buddhist, Hindu, Islam on top of it. It's all kind of mixed in, and so it's not.
Well,
it's
and
not
it's like here. Yeah. Just because people say they're Christian doesn't mean they hold tight to all the tenets. You
Yeah,
know what I mean?
exactly.
Same thing with my girlfriend's Jewish. She eats bacon. You know, like she loves pork. She's not gonna stop eating pork. Like,
just because, yeah.
yeah. So there's
religion
like
thinks so.
there's like you're saying. Well, there's fundamentalism, but it's I really like that you started from that and quickly learned like, oh, that's perfect. If I had grown up here, would I believe this? No, I'd have been taught this. And it's really great to have that, like, I believe this because this is how I grew up.
It opens your mind, kind of
Yeah.
expands your awareness, and kind of makes you more open and receptive to other things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I really like Hinduism. That's what, it bothers me when people say that about Tulsi Gabbard. They're like, but she's Hindu. I'm like,
So what?
I didn't even know that.
Yeah. I've
So
only heard
what?
that from people on the right who, when I'm saying, like, I would like to vote for Tulsi. I would love for Tulsi to be the candidate, so I would very easily go, oh, I definitely prefer her to Trump. Please let me vote for Tulsi. Yeah. But the problem is people keep saying things like, well, she's Hindu. And it's like, who cares?
Yeah.
I don't care. And like the people
I don't trust
who,
any of it.
well, the people who, look, swing voters actually make the choice. I'm a swing voter.
Yeah.
I'm not sold on Republican or Democrat. Like, I'll vote for who most matches what I think at the time. And to me, Tulsi is a person who every time I see her speak, every time she goes on, I'm like, I agree with everything she said. Every now and then there's like maybe something that I'm not that sold on, but it's like I don't hate it either.
I do appreciate her military experience.
Yeah.
Yes, that's it. When
There's a
she
bunch.
talks about the military,
She talks about it in a very internal way. She sounds like she's saying
informed.
what I would say about the military.
she's informed on the matter.
What do you think about the empathy movement? I mean, tying all this into the empathy movement, is because that's
Yeah.
what I think where we need to go in terms of the culture.
In general,
general, is like, what's her position on empathy? What are the
good
positions
question.
on the different
So-
candidates?
That's a
So
good point.
that's
Mariana Williamson.
right.
I talked to her at the Democratic
Really?
convention here. She held up a sign saying, "I support a culture of empathy." So I'm
Yeah.
just
Okay.
wondering, what is the
Yeah,
position?
you can't really argue with it as
No.
a strategy. It's if you say I think people should be more empathetic to each other. That's
I've
I
had
don't think
people.
anybody can shoot that
Well,
down.
They do. There's books against empathy, the dark side of empathy. So
Whoa.
there's
well,
Really?
Let me
Yeah.
give you an alternate side to that. So when I've argued with people, specifically about the rally in Charlottesville, where a lot of actual white supremacists did come out and march through the street, the thing is when it came to discussing that, I would have people say, "Well, you don't have any empathy for Jewish people."
Oh, I see. Uh-huh.
That was their attack on me was, you don't have enough empathy for Jewish
for the victims, and
For the
you're
victims.
basically saying I'm also having empathy for the perpetrators.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the thing is I also say, well, these people are so angry. They have such a grievance. They have something that's in their head that has forced them to come out and protest.
And you want to listen to them, hear their point of view.
I think it's
So that
important
they don't feel like they need to arm
understand where
themselves
they're
and
coming
stuff,
from.
yeah.
And then if you hear them and you go, oh, that's crazy. Like you're nuts.
Yeah.
Fine.
Yeah.
Fine.
But
you
just
should still
listen, hear them
listen
out.
to understand. Maybe there's something that's a real grievance.
Well, the
Maybe
other thing,
they have.
the other thing
you
about
know?
it is just by the act of hearing them out, you disarm the combat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You take the level down.
Right.
It's
We're
like,
not at, I'm not listening to you because you're a white supremacist. We're now at, okay, you think white people should be superior. Tell me about that. Tell me about why you think that's rational. Tell me about why you think that's an okay thing to
I've
think.
never
Like,
heard that question, but can you imagine? Can you imagine? Okay, tell me why.
tell me why. Just ask them. Why not?
Well,
that seems like a reasonable
yeah.
question. Why do you have the beliefs that you have? Tell me what they are.
Well,
Help
so
me
to me,
understand.
here's-
There's another level to this too. I would say so. At Charlottesville, one of the main groups was the Identity Europa, I believe. Right. So we did it. We went to a rally. It was a right-wing rally in Sacramento. We set up the empathy tent. We were the only folks somewhat on the left, and different people came by, and a group of 5 Identity Europa came by, sat down in the tent. They were saying, what's this about? And a friend of mine who's Jewish was talking with them, and I was like busy talking to somebody else, and I could hear things kind of tense up a little bit, you know. And then I turned and I said, here in the empathy tent we do empathy circles. And they said, oh yeah. And I said, I explained how we do it. And then they actually tried. They were willing to try to do empathic listening. They were open to it. They were giving it a shot. And, it kind of, the dialogue kind of went around a bit. We're kind of keeping them on track. Then my friend, who's Jewish, the topic came up is, what was the Holocaust? What does the Holocaust mean to you, or Nazism? And my friend said, it means to me that half my family, extended family, were killed, and the other half, he was from Austria, his family, were scattered around the world. And then he said that to the person from Identity Europa, and he said, well, what did you hear me say? And he said, well, the communists, no, the Nazis were just trying to fight the communists. He said, no, that's not what I said.
Yeah.
I said half my family were killed.
Yeah.
And he said it again, and he couldn't reflect it. He did it 4 times.
Wow.
And he still wasn't getting it.
He could not mirror it.
He could not mirror it. But then a friend of his who had been doing a little bit of empathic listening with another one of our members, he said, just tell him what you heard him say. And he said, half your family were killed and the other half were spread around the world. And he said, that's it. You heard me.
Yeah.
And for my friend who's Jewish, that was a big
thing.
You think it's a little tiny thing. For him, it really meant something.
Well,
it really, affected him. It was like a feeling of connection.
If I can take it to a personal,
that's amazing.
If I can take it to a personal note, I have been having to confront my post-traumatic stress, especially over 4th of July, and it makes me want these stronger family connections. It's basically like you have this really strong connection with the Marines and the guys around you and your brothers, and then when you get in that panic situation, that's what you want. That's what you're looking for. And so I've been talking to my brother, and we have huge problems with listening, and it would mean so much for me to hear him just be able to reflect back the problems of the family that I have found painful, and he cannot do it. It's that same thing where he hits the block and he just keeps repeating back. I'm like, no, I said this.
Yeah.
And he cannot do it. And that's what's tearing our family apart.
That's where you need like some support, like a facilitator, someone that kind of can
trying.
hold it.
Well, so Edwin,
I'm here. I do it.
Edwin
I do
said this
family
before.
empathy circle.
I was talking about how Not Safe for Work got canceled, right?
Yeah.
Over a year-old grudge, and everyone was like, "Why didn't you have an empathy circle?"
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, yeah." What a great idea. That actually probably would have.
Well, here's the thing: is that kind of brings
ago.
to one of the things that I've noticed is that people that are on the quote right, because a lot of people aren't, they're really center or whatever, but they're kind of falling on this free speech, open dialogue. That tends
Which
to be
shouldn't
sort
be
of
a right-wing
but that
thing.
tends to be kind of a right position at this point.
Yeah.
And those people are willing to show up and try to have a dialogue and discuss, but there is a huge section of the left that is just so pained, so hurt, so upset that they want to go straight to violence, and they don't want to have a discussion, and that looks to me to be like the Antifa. But there's also, I see extensions of that on Twitter where I'm trying to be reasonable and playful, and people, they'll block you.
Well, most of the people, is the people on the left, the middle, left, they're the ones that will actually take part most readily in an empathy circle. If we have these empathy circles online, they're the ones that show up. It's the farther left that won't. And now we're trying to extend into the right, because there's some skepticism about empathy.
Yeah.
But once the right, I find, is once they learn what it really is, it's not like feeling sorry for someone. It's not like taking sides. It's about being heard and being seen for who they are. Like you want to be heard and seen by your brother.
Yes.
You want to be heard and seen by your whole family, and you just know that. And you want to be. We need to work on your conflict with that one that you were talking about. So once they get it, they're pretty open to it.
Once they understand.
Once they understand what it is, that it's not a trick, and so that's the area that I've been trying to work at, because the liberals, the real middle,
I think
the
most
left,
people are
they're
kind of
pretty open.
and that's the thing is I would say most of my views tend to be relatively liberal views, but I tend to end up on the right in the conflict because things like free speech are super important to me. Things like I think that hard work, I think that taking on responsibility in your life, I think that not asking the system to solve the problems for you, but taking on the personal responsibility of solving your own problems in your own life in a responsible way is important. And I see, the communist, socialist far left of going, somebody else solved my problems, I'm in too much pain. And in history, that's caused just horrific shit. Well, we can't do that.
Yeah.
Like,
it's your experience when you go to the rallies. I saw you at the Demand Free Speech rally here in San Francisco, and you've been to some of the. Were you in Berkeley for that
most
big
of them?
thing? Yeah.
For,
so you've been to a lot of the rallies where violence has erupted, but you're not a part of that. Obviously, you're there to try to facilitate a dialogue.
And listen to the sides, even independently, just so somebody's there to listen.
Somebody's listening,
yeah.
Exactly. And unfortunately, it seems like the people that are willing to go out there and demonstrate and who put on masks and stuff, you think they would want to get their point across, but you said that they didn't want to talk very much. Is that
It's been
accurate?
harder to get Antifa to talk, definitely. I keep reaching out, and I make an effort. I do have this little box that says it's a little plastic box that says free empathy kisses, and there's Hershey's Kisses. And I have my free empathy card.
Yeah.
And I walk around, and so I walk down the Antifa line and say, would you like empathy kiss? And then some girl go like this. And I said, you sure you don't want to? No. I look around, okay. So they'll take, and then after about 2 hours, everybody's tired. Kind of everybody will take an empathy kiss because their blood sugar is down. So I'll walk down one line, the Antifa line, give empathy kisses, then go around past the police to the right wing side, give them empathy kisses. So, try to offer both sides. But the right has been more open to dialogue. That's been my experience. Versus the hard left. The kind of the moderate left they're pretty open, but they don't come to those rallies.
Right, because they're not interested in violence.
Yeah, well, when you say Identity Europa was willing to take place, in the empathy
but
that's
not Antifa.
Well, and because when people talk about like white nationalism, Identity Europa is unapologetically white nationalist. Like, so I mean, I get that there's you can go I get that being a nationalist on its own is not that terrible. And being somebody who's concerned about their own race is not that bad either. But I do think Identity Europa is easily put into the white, I don't want to say white supremacist, but white nationalist category. And having somebody like that who's been that maligned be willing to actually have a dialogue says a lot to me.
Yeah.
And especially that, and your story was excellent because he was having trouble admitting what a person told him about their personal experience because he's had all these things told to him and he's never confronted somebody who said, no, this is my experience.
This is how that personally impacted me.
This is what really happened. And he had a mental block. He didn't want to do it.
But he had his philosophy,
and he didn't want to hear a personal experience through, like, couldn't compute the two.
And so here's the thing: is that you broke a wall. You poked a hole in a wall that day.
Yeah.
Whether he wants to remember it or not, you poked a hole in a wall. And the problem is Antifa doesn't want their wall poked.
Nope. Well, I think, for me personally, in my story, in my life, I've had to do a lot of personal growth, and this personal responsibility and personal accountability things have become really important to me, and that's a huge error that I see on that side, on that Antifa side, is this notion that my problems are actually just you. You are my problems.
Scapegoating.
It's
the number one thing
externalizing a problem.
Scapegoating is what Antifa. It's one of the things that fascism is scapegoating. And when you scapegoat patriarchy, white people, whatever. It's the same thing. It's all scapegoat.
Jews.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what the Nazis were doing. The Nazis were scapegoating Jews. So I that's the other thing is that with a lot of what I hear from the white supremacist camp, because there's a huge spread in there, but I am empathetic to the message coming from the left that says we need to destroy this heterosexual white Christian male way of life because that represents everything evil in the world. So we need to get these people out of the world. And so it feels like to them that there's this genocide being brought upon them. And even though people aren't being killed yet, people are being cut out of jobs, people are being economically, put upon, people are being shamed publicly, that there's a large, it is acceptable to on social media shit on heterosexual men. I've heard plenty of comics joke around about white genocide in various different ways, or even with the joke of, oh, I think we could kill all the white people. Well, at least just all the white men. And, people will say that like it's a joke. Mm-hmm. And there's no empathy from that other side that the white guys hear that as, we want to end you and your way of life. Mm-hmm. And so
it's like you're just saying that they're not empathizing with the people that they're kind of putting down, and like a lack of sensitivity to what they're
not being sensitive. They're not being empathetic to why the white supremacists would pick up the weapons, and that when somebody starts hearing you are everything evil on this planet because of your skin color, your gender, and your sexual orientation. P.S. And by the way, this is how we plan on ending racism, sexism, and sexual discrimination. In my brain, I'm going, what the fuck?
Well, look. Let's look at what happened to Andy Ngo and put this in perspective, all right? Because what you're saying is the thing is so a lot of Antifa view violence as self-defense.
Right.
They think that there's an oppressed class that needs defending,
and they're defending
and
their
that their violence is preemptive, and they're defending that class. Now, the problem is exactly what you were saying. Is there's people on the other side who believe that the white race or men or whatever are being attacked,
and they're doing the same thing.
They can use that same argument. We're preventing violence by proactively being violent. Both sides can use that argument.
Yeah.
And both sides are insane. If you're using that argument, you're part of the problem. I'm repeating Joe Rogan, but that's true. Yeah. If you're the one saying, well, we have to act violently because of that, what they're saying is dangerous. When you say we have to be violent because of what they're saying, you have crossed a line.
Yep.
Yeah,
Agreed.
well, for
both
me,
sides.
it's sort of like the philosophy of understanding where everybody's coming from. Mm-hmm. In a sense, I can throw all that out and say, it doesn't really matter where you're coming from. I would like to listen to you about what's real for you, and I would like to listen to you about what's real for you, and I would like the two of you to listen to each other about what's real for you. I don't know what your whole philosophical realm is, but it's just the core of the empathic dialogue. And you're talking about how you do the empathic dialogue with reflective listening, and that's just like a crutch. I mean, ideally we'd have all that embedded in us just naturally, right? You would have grown up in a family. I would have grown up in a family where everybody sort of listens to each other, and we wouldn't have to do remedial listening. So
it's a good way to put it, remedial listening.
Yeah. So in terms of the philosophy, when you get down to the person, it's like understanding all the background, like the Identity Europa person. He had his whole mental scheme. It's like, I don't know what it is. It doesn't matter to me. It's like, I see you as a human being. I want to hear you. Have I heard you to your satisfaction? Yeah. So one thing I want to say is the whole mental analysis and studying and analyzing the situation can't actually be a block to the connection. It's like you just want to say, we all have our humanity. What's really important is that we listen to each other, and I'm here to offer that listening. Maybe people can't listen to each other, but I'm here to kind of prime the pump. I'm here to start the dialogue process. I don't know if that makes sense. But
no, that makes sense.
Totally
Well, what I heard out of that was that everybody has their own paradigm that they see the world through because of their experiences.
Yeah.
And when you meet somebody, you cannot get the totality of that. You're not, especially not instantly. It would take a long time to really fully understand another human being, and so the shortcut to that connection, is through the empathy and actually listening and letting it in and getting your own paradigm out of it and just letting them have the space.
Yeah, and not even getting too wrapped up in what they're coming in with all the analysis
We
of
just
what
want to
their
understand
paradigm
what they're
is.
saying.
Is we want a sense of connection, and so that's what is in.
Well, it's hard to hate somebody you've connected with.
Yeah, that.
I mean, and that's one of the big problems that we come up with is hate.
Yeah.
I see this specifically. Again, I hate to
hate
point to the left, but it seems to me like they're projecting their hate. And
that they say you hated me first, and now it's okay for me to hate you when nobody was hating you in the first
right,
place. It's a projected hate.
Because a lot of the people on the right that they don't listen to have a grievance that they're trying to be heard.
Well, you know how
they're not feeling heard. And that's what brings people out with armor and weapons is they're not being heard.
Yeah, the whole hate frame on the left, like Berkeley, when the right came, they had 20,000 signs saying against hate. I don't know if you saw those signs. They were on every post. So it's these big letters, hate, hate, hate. You just go down hate. So it's like, so even in framing,
I didn't see that.
Oh, you didn't? It was 20,000 of these signs that they posted all
everywhere
over.
saying we're against hate.
We're against hate.
But then again, you're just putting the word hate out there.
Yeah.
So the word hate was huge.
It was huge. So everything is hate, 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 hate.
Wow.
Like literally, there's
the
a
whole
wall
town was like
hate.
in Berkeley.
In Berkeley.
Yeah.
So
That's insane.
It's an interesting.
So
It's an interesting perspective that I see that from the same way that you see that, and I think a lot of people would see that from we're against hate, but we see that as but you're going right to hate.
Well, you're evoking the
hate.
Frame, the feeling of hate. You see hate, it's like
I hate
you,
hate.
You feel hate. Yeah, you hate hate. It gets pretty
cyclical.
Weird. So for me, I would have liked support empathy. There would have been 20,000 signs.
Wow,
Let's build a
way
culture
better.
of empathy. It's like, how can we work together? How can Antifa? How can we work together to build a culture of empathy? To the right, how can we work to build a culture of empathy? Let's work together on this project.
The way that we were able to establish that in Afghanistan, I give a huge amount of credit to these patrols where we would play with the people. We'd play. Because you can't speak the same language. You can sit down and drink a cup of tea, but you can't have a conversation over that cup of tea. But everybody can play a game.
We need sports. We need Antifa sports. That's what we need.
Yeah.
We need, hey, Antifa, come play softball with us. Hey, Antifa, because you got to bring them into the conversation. That's the problem, is I feel like there's people that are not being brought into the conversation
the other thing
because
about
they don't want to empathize with somebody they view as evil.
Right? They don't. But the thing is that if you give that game framing context,
it's still us against them.
But even if it is, we were talking about the Joe Rogan podcast with Andy now.
Yeah.
That was what he was saying that is, and I see it the same way that Antifa and the white supremacist folks and whoever else is getting in there and fighting does not understand violence, and what they're doing to me looks like a game. That's not real violence. None of you know what you're doing. You're running around trying to enact this thing sort of in a game context. Here's a ball. Why don't you just fucking play it with a ball? Like, you don't need to punch each other.
Let's play dodgeball.
Yeah. like you can work this out
Dodgeball.
without
That's the
punching
perfect
each other.
one.
Like,
Antifa dodgeball.
Something that de-escalate, basically.
Right.
Yeah. See, I would have it's like you're saying. I know you think that the left is not being empathic, but the right is not being empathic either.
You're right.
So for me, for the right,
You're right.
Patriot Prayer in Berkeley, or
they're intentionally antagonizing.
They could have said, we want to listen to Antifa. They could have set up a line of chairs and say, we're here to listen.
That's a great idea.
They could have.
Great idea.
I think that is a great idea.
And say, they could even have here to listen T-shirts.
Where
and then they
are
set
these
a chair
organizers?
across.
Let's pitch them.
Well,
on this.
Yeah, exactly. And then somebody's got to start the ball rolling, right? One of the sides. So
absolutely.
I have to
Somebody
say,
with courage.
I just watched a video recently of Joey Gibson by himself. Nobody else with him. Just by himself. He was probably had 6 to 10 Antifa people around him, but he was trying. It's visible that he's over there. Hey, let's talk. Let's like I don't know. He came up to some event or whatever. But he was by himself. He didn't have Tiny with him. He had none of his crew. He wasn't wearing armor. Yeah. He was just out there saying like, "Hey, like, I'm here alone. Let's talk." And guys with gloves, with those knuckles on their gloves and stuff, were just like, "No, like we don't want to talk to you."
Yeah, that's hard to, from the history. There's all that history there. Yeah. But maybe if he would have, I've talked to. He was in an empathy circle. A couple
Joey
of them.
Gibson was.
Yeah, so nice. We did. I don't know if you saw that one. It was at Berkeley. So he was willing to take part in an empathy circle with the person on the left, and it was actually we had BAM come in.
Oh, really? Is
and
this
they
on
were
YouTube?
yelling. Yeah, they were yelling. They kind of shouted it down. We were talking this far apart, and we had megaphones to hear each other. And then we went for. It was kind of hard to. We're only like 3 or 4 of us trying to hold the space.
Yeah.
And so we didn't have enough people.
Dude, I need to get in on this. I need to come to these live events with you guys.
You need to come and help us.
Yeah.
Do some
I would
training.
be.
I would love to have you.
Yeah.
I would be very strong.
Actually, I'm really into this. Well, here's the thing: is Edwin has brought a side to this that I support.
Yeah.
Like I support free speech, obviously, and I think that was the weird thing about going to the Demand Free Speech rally is everybody there who is not wearing a mask was saying, we support your right to speech. Even to the people wearing masks. They were like, yeah, we support your right to be here. And they're like, well, we don't. And it's like, well, okay, well, here's the clear difference between us. Is we support your right to be here and say what you want, and you're not.
You don't think we should be able to say what we
want. But
want,
at that particular rally, there were like 3 Antifa. Like it was not very threatening.
Well, what I'm advocating for is pretty revolutionary. I'm saying that we need to really transform the whole government to have empathy as a primary social value. So even democracy is kind of is sort of a weak form of empathy that I think it could be really increased. So I would like to see, for example, the political left and right in Congress all doing empathy circles with each other and actually advocating, going to the streets and demanding, we're going to do an occupation on the Capitol Mall until, the congressional representatives do empathy
sit
circles.
Down.
And, Trump, that you saw that Trump was with Nancy Pelosi and Schumer and Pence in the Oval Office. I think they were having sort of this dialogue, kind of more of a freestyle dialogue. I would like to see the 4 of them in an empathy circle.
I can only imagine Trump in an empathy circle.
He might be good at it.
I think he could be.
Yeah. He could.
Here's the thing.
Good communicator.
Here's the thing.
Understands
Off camera, I think Trump would be very willing and a good participant. However, when you put a camera on him, he's a star.
Yeah, he's gonna play.
He's gonna put on the show.
Yeah.
And so I feel like he could be good in an empathy circle, depending on the situation.
There's the rules. If you follow, you got to follow the rules. You got to reflect back to the satisfaction of Nancy Pelosi. You've got to say what she says to her satisfaction. And then you can say whatever you want, and they'll do the same for you.
I would love to see that.
Yeah.
One of the things that I was thinking when you were saying that was that, especially dealing with these traumatic stress issues and the family issues, that one of the issues is at the forefront for me is that I feel like our familial tribal safety connections in this society are actually weaker than they've been in history. It's this like humanity connection. And so I think part of the reason why the political climate has gotten so toxic is because everybody feels like they need their tribe and that they're not safe. They don't have, in the same way that I go to look.
The family tribe has been deteriorating.
Yeah. We've been deteriorating the family tribe. We've been deteriorating these things, and the people without that are craving that, and so then they find an ideology and whatever, and that becomes Antifa becomes their family.
Yeah.
That becomes their tribe, and now it doesn't
really
matter. It doesn't matter what you say.
The empathy in the family.
If
you had stronger,
to grow
it,
to grow the family, to make sure that everybody knows,
strengthen the family.
Everybody knows that this family is America. That's everyone. It does not draw any lines, like you said, the 100%. Like it does not draw any lines.
Big signs on the tin. 100% empathy. You can see the photos.
I have never a lot of times I'm the guru in the room. All right, like I'm pretty empathetic. Like I throw out some pretty high ideals, but when I talk to you, I'm like, okay, this guy's a little
Different
bit,
level.
Yeah, like this guy really knows what's going on, and I consider you a teacher. Like to me, like your empathy, your culture of empathy is like, it's revolutionary, and I really want to amplify your empathetic ideals. I think it's really important. I would love to see you moderate Trump and Pelosi.
Pelosi, yeah.
That would be amazing. To make Trump repeat back what Pelosi says, like
To her satisfaction.
yeah, that would be absolutely incredible. Although I have to say, like, I think Pelosi and Trump actually get along better than we are allowed to see in public. Yeah. Because if you notice, like, Trump gives her more respect than he does a lot of other people. And she doesn't really, a lot of the jabs that other people throw at Trump, she doesn't. She doesn't throw the cheap jabs. Mm-hmm. She keeps it more high level, and so I do think that those two do actually respect each other.
Well, I would like to see them model it, because what I'm thinking is if we can have high-profile political people model this,
then other people can see it and they know the tools.
It'll be modeled through it. I've been trying to get Gavin Newsom to take part in Empathy Circle.
That would be good.
Yeah. So I don't know.
Well, it's an interesting idea of
I've sort of been setting it up. I've got some.
Well, trying to go up. I was gonna say that I want to just reinforce the tactical stability of this as a strategy. That I think, I mean, militaristically, if you're coming into this to go, I am going to defend my community, like both of these fighting people are saying, this is a legitimate strategy. This is a completely legitimate tactical strategy. It works. You want to make your community safe, listen to the guys you think are threatening you. They may not actually be as dangerous as you. You might actually be able to find common ground. And now they're in your tribe. Yeah. You're on the same page. You're not fighting anymore. You don't need to fight. Mm-hmm.
And you can start working constructively together. Like the empathy, like, you talked about the active listening part. That is like the first part. That is like the first part. There's a whole methodology of empathic design, which is also called human-centered design or design thinking. So this comes out of like Silicon Valley. These startups are using it. So it's a whole design methodology for addressing any problem. Like any problem you've got, you can design solutions for it. So it comes out of the the global design community and Stanford and IDEO or like core places for this practice. And the idea is that any problem you have, you first have to empathize with the people who are the stakeholders. And then you listen, you interview them, and you go through a methodology of gathering the insights, brainstorming. First you define the problem area, you brainstorm solutions, and then you design prototypes, quick, rapid prototypes, and then you go test your prototype. And then you gather the insights from your prototype, and you start all over again. Wow. The whole process, and it's like core. I mean, there's 40 schools in the Bay Area alone, like K through 12 schools that use this practice. So they're already teaching kids. So this is like the future, and empathy is the starting point. So it's not just like, you sit and do empathic listening. It's like it moves into creativity, innovation, and problem solving. Yeah. So it's really I really think it's where humanity needs to go. Yeah. And needs people to lead. It's like you guys gotta become leaders.
Yeah. Oh no, I'm good at that. I can do that.
Yeah. I
think that's the conclusion of this podcast for me, in the sense that I need to be a leader.
Yeah.
That like I understand this stuff on a different level, and I can fight this fight in a different way, and I'm not doing enough.
Yeah. No, and all the viewers too. They got to be leaders. Grab the.
Have the courage to be a bit vulnerable.
Well,
let your enemy know that they're not your enemy.
Yeah. You said you've talked to Joey Gibson on who's like the most famous person that you think you've had involved in an empathy circle?
Isn't famous?
Most notoriety, most well known.
Well, we did, when they had the Assembly 15 district for California State Assembly, we held a radical empathy forum. We had 11 candidates who were running for office, in the East Bay, actually come to an empathy forum, and we did empathy circles. So we had a person who's the mayor now of El Cerrito.
Huh.
It was like several city council members, Richmond, Berkeley, Oakland. So we've had, kind of political folks.
I think
Wow.
it's a good place to start. I like the idea of going after sort of personalities or social media personalities, or wouldn't it be great to have Steven Crowder sit down with, I forget the name of the journalist.
Carlos Maza.
Wouldn't it be great to have
Absolutely.
those two sit down?
Yeah.
I saw that whole situation unfold from Crowder's point of view, where it was sort of this sparring back and forth that was generating more traffic, which I have a point of view and you have an opposing point of view.
Yeah,
and
let's play around.
Let's play around and let's play a game.
That's what
Let's
I was
fight
doing.
on social
That's what
media
I
as
was
a game.
doing with
Yeah.
Clay, and then he
Let-
got my show canceled. But that's what that was the thing.
That was the thing, is let's fight on social media. And I've actually done that with some
let's
comics.
have a show.
I've done that with some comics on social media as well, which is you're expressing a point of view. I obviously have an opposing point of view, and we're going to kind of spar publicly as sort of a game.
Yeah, we need Jordan Peterson. I've been really
Oh, he's
wanting to
great.
get Jordan Peterson with some of
He's
his
really
critics.
busy. He's really busy.
Yeah, but he is a big. I just posted a clip of him talking about empathic listening.
Yeah.
He talks about Carl Rogers. I don't know if you saw that clip, but he is a proponent of it. He talks about empathic listening as sort of
I don't
a
have his
steel
book up there, but I
pen.
love Jordan Peterson so much.
Yeah, we're both fans of Peterson.
Yeah. He means so much to me.
But
It's
if
changed my
need,
life.
We
He's
need
great.
him to. If everybody has a connection to him, he's busy, but this is so critical. This would be so influential, and he is a supporter of this practice because I've seen him talk about it.
Absolutely, yeah.
And have him actually model it. And
if you
I
see
think
him,
that's important.
If you see
modeling
him,
it.
if you see him,
you can't talk about it. You got to show
especially early in his rise to fame, when he was on campus and he had protesters, and he would come out and talk to the protesters, and he would be getting shouted at and like all these other things, and he would be trying to have a dialogue.
Wow.
And so I think he's very in tune with the power of this practice.
Yeah.
Well,
So,
this
yeah.
is interesting. So
Yeah.
I brought this up to Tyler yesterday, and I was saying that I get when I'm asking legitimate questions. I like the Socratic method of philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
So when somebody says something that to me doesn't make sense, or I see like something's off, I'm like, that doesn't fully make sense to me. I'm going to ask a question that will help me. Either you'll be able to answer my question in a way that helps me understand,
Or you
or
won't.
I will say, okay, now I understand how you're wrong. So I ask a question, and I get accused sometimes of asking a question in bad faith. So to me, what I've done is I've gone ahead and preempted that by saying, so in good faith, I would like you to explain to me your position better. Now, I think that from doing the empathy circles, I think a better tact would to say, this is what I hear you saying. This is how I understand what you said.
yeah.
Is this correct?
That was, and when we were talking about
Yeah.
that, I criticized that approach of like saying that they are going to put their heckles up because it sounds like you're in good faith. Sounds like, well, I'm about to say something in bad faith.
So
But if
instead,
if you give them empathy first, this is what I heard you say. Does this piece of it check out?
yeah.
That's a much
Did
better-
I understand
yeah.
you?
Much better.
That's
approach.
a good. Yeah, that's
I
a
think
good
it's a-
starting. Then you can, once they feel heard, then you can ask your question or kind of respond with what comes up for you. Sometimes people will feel it's sort of manipulative. You can say, "Is it okay if I just reflect back my understanding of what you're saying, just to be sure I'm clear
Clear that I
on it?" So you
understand,
make a request asking if you can do that. Because sometimes people need that reflection. Could also be they could take it as
Condescending.
or
Yeah.
something like that.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, you need to repeat it back to me.
Okay,
Yeah.
So you can say, for my own clarity, can I just, reflect back what I'm saying? It'll help me get some clarity.
Make
Be
sure I'm understanding
I'm
you.
understanding this. Is this okay with you?
Yeah.
So just make it, there's a lot of different ways of deepening the practice. So
I mean, like it's like verbal judo, except that you're not trying to win. You're just trying to understand.
it's an integrative process. So empathy is about us as human beings, our neural networks integrating with each other. We're not trying to dominate the other neural
Right.
network. We're trying to integrate and see how we can integrate our
That's a good way of
respective
explaining it. That we're
neural
not trying to
networks.
get them onto our side. We're trying to get the two sides to mesh.
Synthesis.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And but without domination, right?
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
the whole
Without you coming to my side or me coming to
right.
your side.
or putting down or crushing you, or
Yeah.
like I'm gonna beat you up, so you kind of take,
Have to take my point of view.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
Makes
get
sense to
another
me.
beer.
Well, I was gonna say we've been doing this for
We have an hour.
55 minutes. It was already time
Wow,
flies.
that was quick.
I think we've covered pretty much everything. I mean, do we have anything
Well-
else to
Well,
cover?
I'll tell you you're talking about family. I mean, actually, when you were talking about family, I could feel myself just kind of get more sensitive and kind of a little sad, or and so my family, some of them are Trump supporters, and they didn't understand what I was talking about with the empathy work. But I mediated a conflict in the family, and it was like it ended with hugs all around and everything, ended really well.
It worked out.
And I said, this is empathy. And they said, hey, this is pretty good. And so we've been holding, regular. Just last Sunday, I was in Sacramento with them. There was a family issue, and we spent 4.5 hours in an empathy circle. So when you said 55 minutes, it's like, this is just getting started.
Oh no,
It's actually in the second and third and fourth hours that things start getting deeper,
Well,
Wow. I mean, we don't have a time limit on this show, so we'll come back. We
Yeah.
just like to cut it an hour to make sure
a little
syncs
harder
up.
and everything
Right.
syncs up. We don't have to come back, but
But I'm just saying
Well,
that
the
with
o-
empathic listening, it's like
oh,
it
that
takes
4-hour
time.
rabbit
Yeah.
hole. Oh, I know the
Yeah.
4-hour rabbit hole because at the Wilderness Survival Program, that was 6-hour circles were
Yeah.
not uncommon.
Mhm.
Of like, okay, we're gonna work some shit out, and like this person's having a problem, and everybody's having a problem with everybody, and then you start getting into it, and you go deep, and then like eventually at some point in time, everybody kind of gets exhausted. And you kind of you're like, okay, so these are our conclusions. Okay, yeah, 6 hours. Jesus Christ.
Where'd the time go? Yeah.
Yeah. So
Okay.
Well, so tell people how they can find you, how they can watch more empathy
Oh, yeah.
circles.
Cultureofempathy.com or empathytent.com will get you there too. So
Okay.
just links to all
and then
the
on
material.
Facebook and all that stuff is all there.
Yeah,
Because that's where
everything
I
links
follow
from
you
that,
guys on
yeah.
Facebook.
So everything
Okay.
links from there,
Yeah.
from empathytent.com.
Empathytent.com. I mean, I think what you're doing is incredibly important. I think the
I think it's
skills you're
intelligent.
imparting to people are what's needed in the world right now.
Yeah.
And I really think more people need to pay attention to the empathy movement.
Yeah.
I love what you said about empathy now, like empathy, 100% empathy. Like, put empathy on the signs. Don't put hate
on the
on
sign.
your signs.
Yeah.
Put empathy.
Empathy.
And I'm grateful for you guys too, just for being interested in this, because this is rare. It's like, well, you guys having even an interest in this. There is not a lot of interest, which just kind of makes me sad. I see this as sort of the solution, and just to see your interest, I mean, just feels really good.
It is the thing is like, look, if I go on YouTube, it's more interesting to watch Patriot Prayer and Antifa fight each other. It's interesting to watch people throw punches. Is
not
it interesting
productive.
to watch those two people sit down and have a conversation? Actually, I've done that too. I've watched that too, and when that happens, it's rare, because I saw a guy get. He got one of the big Antifa members from Portland, who's like at all the rallies. He never wears a mask, and they had a Proud Boy, and that like one of the uppers in the Proud Boys, and they had him and they tried to get him to have a conversation, and they were very resistant to it, and because the moderator was not familiar with the empathy techniques, I think
Yeah.
it really would have helped him, but he did his best, but I want to see more.
And you guys can lead that. You
Yeah,
guys,
no,
you guys
no,
really,
that's- it's important.
You've got the energy for it. You've
Yeah.
got the youth. You've got the technology. You've got the insights.
Well, we had to
so-
have the guru on
a
to
good
impart
idea.
the knowledge.
I want to tell everybody else, at least from our platform, you're announcing it from yours, but from our angle of going, we support this. We think this is a great idea. We're fighting the fight, but we think this is the fight everybody should be fighting.
Yeah,
So-
it's like,
Yeah,
and
I see that support.
yeah, no. Thank you very much for coming on. We really have. I was really excited to do this show.
Well, thanks for inviting me and for your connection, for having taken part in the empathy circle.
Yeah, that's where it started. Like,
Oh.
David Carson was like, you should check out these empathy circles.
Good old David. Yeah,
Yeah,
love the guy.
and he's very right wing, but he's willing to listen. He's willing to take part. He's very opinionated. Great guy.
Yeah, he came. He was in Sacramento at the Empathy tent, and it was a conservative.
Yeah.
Trying to learn how, and he was so good. Just reflect back, he was like a good teacher. I mean, I was really impressed. I thought he's really taken it to heart. So.
Yeah. Well, it's once you participate in it, you really understand the power of empathy.
Just
and
validating someone. Validating someone makes them feel safe.
Yeah.
And bringing in those families. I mean, that's where it's really.
Yeah,
important.
yeah. You can take it anywhere in any situation. You're exactly right. It doesn't have to be political. It can, me and my girlfriend can sit down and
empathize with each other and work some stuff out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
We're pretty good.
All right.
So we'll have more not safe. Silence this.
It's your old show, man.